Hi, everybody. I am Leah, and welcome to Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance. On this episode, I am joined by Lindsey, and we are chatting Letter Late Than Never by Lauren Connolly. Welcome to the podcast, Lindsey.
Thanks, Leah.
Okay, so we will link the synopsis of the book in our on-the-shelf show notes at buzzingaboutromance.com, so you can head on over there and check it out. So this book was released May 11th, 2023. It is part of the Smarty Pants spring release. The tropes are childhood crush, small town, first responder, and there is mental health rep in this book. It is part of the Green Valley Heroes series. It is book 3, and it is a standalone. There is a Jed sighting, though, from Parks and Provocations. So there is a Jet sighting. It is told in dual first person point of view. The put out percentage is 52%. So it is a little bit of a slow burn. And there's kind of a third act breakup, kind of not. You have to read the book to understand why I'm saying kind of. So let's chat Gwen and Sebastian.
Oh boy, Sebastian.
Oh boy, Sebastian.
What is he thinking most of this book?
I think the thing is Sebastian is not thinking most of this book. Like, Sebastian is one of those characters that you do really like, but he is a people pleaser, but he is also a panicked person.
Yeah, he struggles.
Mm-hmm.
He struggles a lot, but he also brings a little bit on himself because he's made decisions, he's done the hard things. So the situation is he's broken up with his fiance,
yes,
but only they know.
Yes.
They haven't told everybody.
Well, he has told his family, but she refuses to tell her family. And so they're not engaged. They're not together. They're he has moved out of their house, and has moved back home. He lives above his parents' garage currently, but she won't tell his family, or her family. She won't tell them. I don't like the fiance for a lot of the book.
I don't like her either. I think you get a little bit of context that puts her in a different light, but I don't either. I felt and you understand later on her motivations, but for so much of the book, she's very much an anti-hero, thwarting their romance. Sebastian's not being upfront with her either. Not only are we broken up, I am trying to move on. So get on this. He's not very upfront with her about the situation. So he winds up being in this fake relationship situation with her.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're not going on dates, but he's making appearances with her, even though they're broken up, to keep up the appearance of a relationship. So it turns what he has with Gwen into kind of a secret romance, even though they're more of a friend.
Well, it's a dirty secret romance too, because she's pegged as the other woman. If people think that they're still together. I think Sebastian's problem is he's not assertive. He's so Elaine says, we need to go do this. And instead of saying, no, I cannot do it, he's like, well, okay, on your time. And it's as you get more of her background, you can understand why he does it. But at the same time, it's grow a pair, tell her this is what you need. Say, I understand that this time is hard for you, but I need this to happen.
Yeah. And then the worst part is that he kind of is preventing any of them from moving on.
Mm-hmm.
He creates a months-long situation by not just being upfront, especially once he meets Gwen, and that's a really cute moment.
It is a really cute moment.
They have a lot of moments.
They really do. So they all were in the same grade in school. Sebastian and Gwen were biology partners. They flirted. She had a huge crush on him. And so she loses her chance with him. She was thwarted by frogs. I'm not going to tell you why, because you got to read that. So she's an aversion to frogs. Frogs are the devil. Frogs are mentioned and she freaks out. It's Becky and bats and birds, things that are mentioned, and it's a trigger warning.
Yeah, she's deeply traumatized by the frogs.
Yes, but the frogs changed the direct trajectory of her life. Things could have been very different if it hadn't been for the frogs.
For both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what happens is the frogs are the catalyst for Sebastian's 10-year relationship with Elaine.
It is. It is the catalyst. And I don't like the frogs. Fuck the frogs.
Nobody likes the frogs.
But so Gwen is a mail carrier in their small town of where they're at. Because they're not in Green Valley, like they're outside of Green Valley, but I can't remember like what the town's name is.
I think so. I think he's just moved back to Green Valley from Maryville.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Okay, you're right. There's a lot going on. But so she's a mail carrier. She likes her job. She is an only child. She's still lives with her parents. She's close with her parents, and she has some good relationships with her coworkers who Sebastian gets really jealous of, and I kind of like it.
I do too. I thought that was funny. Her coworkers are cute in their own little way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I kind of got like grumpy Cletus vibes a little bit.
Well, there's
but without the derangement.
but there's Cletus sightings. Like she has to deliver him odd-shaped packages.
Oh my gosh, the odd shaped package for
Jen.
Jen. There's a conversation between her and Cletus where they're debating how the package could be described in a court of law.
Mm-hmm.
That scene was so funny. I wrote that down on my notes. The cameos, you also see Jethro and his son, and Jethro is horrified to hear his son is learning things from Cletus and his mischievous uncles. Like Jeff, like that moment, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
well, and that's the thing too. Like that is one thing about this book is like you get those moments with characters that you've fallen in love with, and like the Winstons in Green Valley itself. And like you get those check-ins. Like you see that Jethro is basking in life as a stay-at-home dad. Like you see that Cletus is still up to like his shenanigans and chaos. I just love it so much.
you also see, I'm not gonna say all of the scenes, but you see Tempest, you see Jackson James, you see Drew.
Mm-hmm.
And you
do
actually
see
get
Drew.
like page time from Drew, which is almost unheard of in these spinoffs because he's so elusive.
He is. He's like an enigma.
Mm-hmm.
But he's big, and like the bigness like makes moments. Because I will say that. So Gwen, so Sebastian moved back. I think it's been about a year, or maybe just like a few months or something like that. I'm not sure the timeline. Don't quote me on the timeline, people.
Very recent, because like they've broken up, and he's moved back in with his family, but he's like kept everything on the down low.
Mm-hmm. But so Gwen is like avoiding him. Like she
Mm-hmm.
hides. And so she like at one point she hides behind Drew because she is not a big person and he is quite large. So they're at like a jam session or something, and she hides behind him and uses his body as like a shield so Sebastian can't see her.
Yeah, and it's funny because like there's a scene where like he's pointing out, I haven't really seen you around very much, and she's like in her head, yeah, I know, because I'm hiding behind people, I'm dipping into alleys, I'm running away from you, like I spontaneously having a bathroom emergency.
Yeah, she does everything in her power. Everything in her power to avoid seeing him and talking to him. But so because she's like hung up on him, like she has lived her life, like she has had boyfriends, she's had relationships, like she is pined from afar, but he was with Elaine, which I was happy about that like she pined from afar, but she still was living her life. But like when he moves back, like he's still supposedly engaged, and so she's like, I don't want any part of that chaos. But unfortunately, the hiding does not last, and she decides that she's done with avoiding.
She kind of does it to herself too, because Kennedy, his little sister, is very
love
about him and gives him a kitten.
I know.
She just drops a little kitten on him and is like, here's this rare little female tabby for you, and you have to keep her, and her name is Marie Curie, and
which is adorable.
I loved it. The kitten was adorable. And then he's like, what am I going to do with this cat? Like,
And Gwen's like, I will take care of it while you're at work.
so it's the typical situation where a cute little animal has completely
Brought them together.
so cute. Because like he Gwen doesn't necessarily understand their situation. Like it's secret. So even she doesn't know. So she's watching the cat and she thinks he's still engaged and he's being like all cute and flirty with her. And she's like, no, like
Yeah.
the cat misses you. I don't miss you because I can't. And she very much keeps her like emotionally, she sets a boundary that she keeps pretty much the whole time. Like even though she knew she had feelings for him and like even though she falls, like she keeps a very solid emotional boundary and she really tempers her expectations. And some of the reasons for that are really sad. There's like some heavier components of the book when she talks about her gran and like the way her family handled the situation because she's dealing with, you know, the after effects of grief.
I kind of wanted to smack her family for that whole situation.
It was horrible.
It was terrible,
Even
terrible.
her brother, the way he handled it by just like
Checking out. But I do love all the little notes. Like, so every chapter heading has like little, like a one line from like a postcard from her brother, or one line from like a letter to her grandmother. Because her grandmother, when she was alive, she traveled. And then so she made all these pen pals from all over the world. So like that's where the letters, like the letter and the title comes from. But so all of the chapter headings are like just random thoughts like of Ryan, like because he's a long haul trucker. And so it's like random thoughts of Ryan in different states and like random things from people that have written to her grandmother. And I really love that little element.
I did too. I so cute. I wrote down one of them when taking a bathroom break in the desert, check for snakes.
You have to check for snakes in the desert.
I almost stepped on one last week.
I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah, it was quite intense. Like I was really close to it. I was going up the steps outside out back, and then all of a sudden it pokes its head up. A 4-foot long one. It wasn't poisonous or anything. And it didn't like get aggressive with us. But yeah, it was a little bit of close encounter.
That's a little too close for me. But but that's the thing, like these letters, like these little letters, like they tie like things in. It's like, but so Gwen always had the want to travel, but the plan was always to travel with her grandmother. And then when her grandmother passed away, Gwen kind of shut down a little bit because like her grandmother was like one of her best friends. Like they had a really good connection. They had a great relationship. Her family were not forthcoming with a lot of stuff in the way in which her grandmother's health was going. And you can understand the thought process behind it, but at the same time, like that was not cool. But so like when her grandma passes away, like she has no real like she wants to travel, but she is deathly afraid to make that step.
Yeah, and then like she does make a plan to go to Nashville, and before she goes to Nashville, it's gonna be like her first adventure, adventure. She has like a little bit of anxiety where she procrastinates and then doesn't go because she's like, oh, my car has to be cleaned and I have to do all this, and she does all these chores. And I think it's so relatable because I've had moments like that where
well, it's like you get so like psyched up for something, but then you psych yourself out and you're like, this is too much for me in this moment. But then her and Sebastian do make that trip to Nashville. It has to be a secret trip because he's still somewhat engaged. In that whole trip, Sebastian's brother and his partner, in that whole like those scenes, I love them so much.
My favorite part of the book. That whole trip was my favorite part of the book. And here's what I wrote about it. Nashville trip and the Queens, why Sebastian wears pink and the glitter beard.
The glitter beard was great.
Alone should sell you on reading this book.
Yeah, seriously. It really should. But when you find out why the pink happens, honestly, like I was not okay when I was reading this book. Like it was way more emotionally like taxing on me than I anticipated. Like I was crying at one point because I just could not handle it. Like I because Sebastian is like he deals with anxiety, he's dealing with some depression. He's like, and so like he ends up going to therapy, which that might be a spoiler, but I don't care at this point. But so he ends up going to therapy and like the mental health rep and the fact that like it's okay to talk about your feelings, it's okay to talk about your problems. Like, and sometimes you need that extra help. Like it really resonated with me because I have been in that situation. Like I had depression, anxiety. I mean, I still do, but like I know how to cope with it. Like I went through like a couple years of counseling and therapy, and it's like I got the tools. Like, and it really kind of it hit me in a way I wasn't expecting, but in the best way. Like I texted Becky, I was like, I'm reading this book and I am not okay right now.
There's the Okay, so it's book 3 in Green Valley Heroes. And
Yes.
every single book in this series is hands down my favorite in the Smarty Pants world. And this one in particular shows a level of humanity in the characters that authors don't always take the time to get into in a book.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it drove the story and the way that she handled it in the story,
Yeah.
it's really hard to not feel a lot when you read this book. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
dare you to try. You
Yeah.
can't.
Well,
If
and
you
there's a lot of little elements that go into it, like the letters that, like the travel, like the relationship of Sebastian's with his brother and Sebastian's brother with his dad. And like there's a lot of layer to this story that you're not anticipating to be there. I will I will say though, I was a little disappointed that we did not have any food related things. There were no sex nachos.
there weren't sex nachos.
They did eat at Daisy's Nut House multiple times and they had donuts, but there were no food moments. And I was missing that a little bit, but that's a little tangent of my own. But yeah, I this book was
Oh
it
my
was
goodness. Though. The thirst trap. Let's talk about the thirst trap.
oh okay.
You get like a week-long thirst trap
This is true.
from Sebastian. Like he goes off the deep end and thinks like a good plan is to basically like be washing the ambulance, washing the
Washing
fire,
the fire truck.
washing his car, like mowing the lawn with his shirt off, all
Oh, he
sweaty.
totally thirst traps her on purpose
He
too.
for like a week, a solid,
Mhm.
and then he finds
Well,
out he's out of town, and then he gets
well,
upset.
he kind of freaks out.
But it's funny because her coworker calls him on it. He like stops by to drop off the mail, and he's like, so does this work for you?
Hmm. Yeah, it was really funny. I
So
forgot about that actually.
it's like so well balanced because there's really emotional moments, and then it's offset with these really comedic moments,
Hmm.
and it's just there's a good balance.
There's a really good balance, and there's a really good cast of supporting characters in this story too, where they never overshadow the story of Gwen or Sebastian, but they really enhance the way their characters like the interaction between the characters. Like when when I said there's kind of a third act breakup, because they're kind of not together, but they kind of are, and they do separate, but like when they come back together, that whole scene with Kennedy in the locked door. That's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to spoil any of that. Like I love that whole like scenario.
Yeah, it's kidnapping adjacent.
Kidnapping adjacent. Yeah, that's actually yeah. Can you kidnap yourself? I mean, I do love a good kidnapping.
Sure.
But yeah, so it is kidnapping adjacent. but that's the thing, like this book, like there's not a character that shows up on page that doesn't have a purpose. There's not a moment in this book that felt contrived or felt pushed unnecessarily. And it really focuses on like the mental health and the importance of your own well-being as a whole and not in a relationship. And I really enjoyed that fact of this book.
I did too. It just felt very real.
Mm-hmm. It really did. And Sebastian, like when you find out like the root of some of his issues, like it is like a very real problem that like, because he is an EMT, but he works with the fire department. And what really pushed him to move home and like the deciding factors, like those are real situations and real traumas and real like issues that these type of employees and workers have. And I like the fact that she humanizes that scenario in a really graceful way.
Yeah.
Just be prepared, people. Just
Yeah,
be prepared.
it is. I would classify it as a rom-com, but it's not just a rom-com.
Mm-mm.
There's a lot of depth to the story.
There really is.
And I mean, it's from the beginning, because you're finding out from the beginning, like every person has their own story and their own hardships, and the way that it's painted in this story, like everyone is struggling with something.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just makes you feel for every single character. Like Kennedy, deeply sympathized with her as a character. Like her situation is rough, and it's played into Sebastian and some of his fears. And you learn about that pretty early in the story, and then from there you learn more about each of them, like the things that have happened to kind of make them feel the way they feel in the situation. Like Gwen is struggling with not feeling like good things are going to last, and that's really sad. There's a lot of heartbreaking elements to the story, but they're also kind of real. Like there are a lot of things that they talk about where I've had similar conversations or felt similarly in my own life. And like you were saying, like there's so much relatable here, like the human element of these characters, all of the characters, not just Sebastian and Gwen, but like there's a lot to, I think, connect with this story.
Yeah, I agree. Because like even Elaine, as you get to know her, like there's a lot of heavy like in her story and why she's making the choices that she is. And you want to get mad at her, but at the same time, like you understand her motivation. Like Sebastian's brother, like he doesn't come home a lot, and like you get. And I think what I really like about this story is you get so many tiny little elements of story. Like you get so many stories within this story but everything was resolved in a way that like I was happy with, but I didn't feel like she just threw in like a character's like story just for the heck of it. Like I feel like the way that which she tied all of these together, that it worked and it made sense.
I agree. It all served a purpose.
Such a good book. You should just pick it up. It's in a KU. It is Smarty Pants because I mean, and it's really a well thought out story. Thank you, Lindsey, for joining me on this quick shot of romance. Sorry, you were like in the moment of like thought there, and I totally interrupted it.
No, I was just laughing because I was like, I don't know what else to say. We covered everything in my notes.
Okay. Well, thanks. I'm glad. So if you have a book you think we should review for a quick shot of romance, send us an email at thebees@bookcaseandcoffee.com and we might get to it. And until next time, happy reading, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at buzzingaboutromance or on Twitter at buzzingromance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.